Hello everyone, take two of this as my phone decided to only record half of the video, but we're going to be kicking off season previews, and of course today we're going to be starting with the Boston Bruins. I'm doing that because I'm going in alphabetical order of division, so you have the Atlantic Division, and then I'm going in alphabetical order within the division, so Boston of course is up first. Now before we talk about the Bruins, please make sure to subscribe if you are new. It really helps me out, and hopefully I'm able to do this full time one day and get out more videos. Now let's talk about the Bruins. The Spoked Bees are coming off another playoff appearance, and this time the season ended in the first round in a 7-game series against the Carolina Hurricanes. Since then, a lot of has happened, and one of the things that we have to talk about here is the head coach spot. GM Don Sweeney relieved Bruce Cassidy after 5.5 seasons at the helm, and then brought in Jim Montgomery to fill the vacancy. This is significant for a variety of reasons, one being that Boston really has only had two coaches since the 2007-8 season, that being Claude Julien and then Cassidy himself. That's two head coaches in 15 seasons. You have a lot of stability. That's kind of an envy of what a lot of people want in the sporting world, and the team that's got a lot of veterans is going to have to find their footing under Montgomery when they really have not had to deal with a lot of new head coaches in that span. Curious to see how he handles the gig too, as he was the former Dallas Stars head coach in Texas, and for a little over a year and a half he was there and things were going pretty well in terms of them winning games. They were able to win a series as well, I think, in the playoffs before he was being fired for unprofessional conduct, and if I'm not mistaken went to therapy for his alcohol issues. Since then he was an assistant in St. Louis and takes on a relatively tough job in a market that is unfavorable because Boston is an original six franchise, a lot of history, fan base has a lot of expectations, and he's going to have to deal with them. The main things I really want to see from Montgomery here is whether or not he can get some much needed secondary scoring, because the Bruins, while they did have 9 players score 10 goals or more this season, 8 of them scoring 16 or more, they relied a lot on the perfection line. You had the trio of Bergeron, Marchand, and then Pastrnak, and they provided 38%, a little over 38% of the team's goals in the regular season, before that number went even higher at 50% in the playoffs. The reality is, regardless of how good they can be, they are probably not good enough to get them all the way to the cup. They are going to need to have more guys score for them in the playoffs. Otherwise, they're just going to win a round or two at best. Seeing whether Montgomery can handle that or not, and getting these other guys going in the regular season, in the postseason, could be the main difference between them making a run or going home in the regular season or in the first round of the playoffs. Primarily, though, I really would love to see if he could get Jake DeBrusk going like DeBrusk was going last year. If you remember, towards the back end of the regular season, I know that Cassidy had tweaked the lines a little bit, and DeBrusk got really hot at the end of the year and went from being a guy that wanted out of Boston to being a guy that signed an extension to stay in Beantown. And obviously, getting a guy on a cheaper deal like DeBrusk is going and possibly playing top 6 minutes, maybe in top line minutes, that would be big for them if they could, tweak things around and then just get him going. Other guys too, of course, come to mind. Taylor Hall could chip in some more goals as well. Craig Smith. So Montgomery getting those guys going as well as other guys would be big for them, not only in the playoffs but in the regular season for a possible playoff run. And if he is able to unlock that secondary scoring a little bit more, then I would be more likely to say that I would expect a bigger run for Boston in the playoffs. But here's to Coach M into what he has to offer in that regards. Another interesting thing, though, moving on from that topic, will be the storyline to follow of the two veterans that could be a big factor in the Bruins season this year. That, of course, is Patrice Bergeron and then David Krejci. We've already talked about Bergeron quite extensively, or at least enough to where I'll leave the link in the video right here about Bergeron re-signing with Boston and what I expected. I think it's a great deal. As for Krejci, I am really curious to see what happens here. He was retired, went back to his homeland of Czechia, I think is what they're calling it now, but as you know, probably the Czech Republic is how a lot of people know it, but has decided to return on a 1-year, $1 million deal. The 36-year-old could easily be worth this deal and then some, but I am worried a little bit about Boston relying on Bergeron a lot and Krejci a lot in those spots. Krejci is slated in to be their second-line center already, even though he has missed a whole season at the NHL level. So I really am curious to see what is going to happen there. On the bright side, if things don't work out, he is on a one-year deal for pretty much league minimum, so you could slide him down in the lineup, do whatever you need. And if things do work out, then of course you play him more minutes, keep him as that second line center, and you're going to be in good shape. Of course, relying on a little bit of an older player, like I said with Bergeron, but there's worse things to do than pay somebody $1 million to be your second line center. But in general, I have to say, I think this is going to be okay for Krejci. I wouldn't see a world where he isn't worth $1 million. He's a good playmaker. Maybe he's not going to score 20 goals, but he's going to help out the team in terms of helping his teammates out and getting their chances. So I think they're going to be all right in general with him and Bergeron. So these two vets are going to be good. The final thing I wanted to talk about for Boston is what happens if they get off to a rough start this year. What would they do? We already know this is the team that is the sixth oldest team by average age in the NHL, with multiple veterans like Krejci and Bergeron playing big line minutes for them. That is going to be what we have to watch out for, because there is an expected norm of making the playoffs from this fan base and doing something while you're there. The Bruins are supposed to be a good team. They are historic. They are relevant. They are in the thick of it. Should they find themselves on the outside looking in of the postseason, though, they would be in a spot where you see, would they ride it out, try to make it, or would they try to flip some guys and then make some moves for the long-term future, possible rebuild? In my opinion, I really just don't see a world where the Bruins would do that, though. I don't think they would ever try to have some of these guys like Bergeron and Krejci go out on a rebuild, and I think that they would try to ride it out, maybe make some moves to try to make the team better. But we will have to see. So having said all this, do I think the Boston Bruins make the playoffs this season? My answer is, I think they can. I certainly think they're not a walk. The Atlantic is better than recent years, but I do know this team is built around the perfection line at limiting chances for the opposing team at 5-on-5 play, just kind of dominating the 5-on-5 play. And then they have a good enough duo in net of Ullmark and Swayman, but I do think they could be a team that gets in the playoffs. Will they make noise and win a cup? I don't know if I'm that sold yet, as we will have to see. The grind of an 82-game season surely will put them to the test, though, and it could be the difference maker, as injuries and fatigue could be big issues. Fatigue more so for the veterans as they try to get back to the playoffs and maybe make a little bit of noise. So buckle up, Boston Bruins fans, for what should be a pretty exciting season. But do you think the Boston Bruins will make the playoffs? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video and subscribe if you are new. Help me out, hopefully be able to do this full time. Everybody stay safe, have a great night, and Eagle love hockey, all right? Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.